we really attribute a lot of this to the decision to eliminate that transitional bio course and move students into the academic courses. Now that has been very difficult. And I think that the teachers were surprised when they saw the scores, and we had wonderful, Dr. Dormer and I had wonderful conversations about that. Like, we do know that it's challenging, but we're talking about differentiation in those classrooms. We're supporting teachers to meet the needs of all learners, and we are seeing the fruit of the labor there. So providing a standards-based class in a tested area, even in non-tested areas, to be perfectly frank, is the right thing to do for most students. So we are happy to report those scores. So they're the Keystone. Wait, I don't think I talked about what we were doing in math. I may have saved that for another slide, because we're going to be doing some work in math across the board. But let's go to proficiency for 3-year PSSA scores in ELA in middle schools. So you can see if you look at gifted 99, 100%. Oh, I'm sorry. Right, I keep looking at myself. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. There we go. Okay, so we are looking at ELA Achievement and Growth, Proficient and Advanced 3 years for PSSA. And you can see they are incredibly stable. So we're ranging in the high 70s to the mid 80s, and again, they're stable, so things are consistent. And our job now is to move them forward. All right, so now we look at ELA middle school by program, and that's what I was talking about. So 99, 100% for gifted, and our 504 students strong. Our LEP, they made gains from last year because the year prior there were no students taking that test. An improvement in our special education, 43 from 35, 37. So we're pleased with that. And then, you know, in the mid 85% for ELA at the middle school. So ELA at the elementary school, again, you're seeing incredible consistency here. So our gifted students are doing well. 504, our LEP students are making gains. Our special education students, 48%, we're remaining relatively stable there, and we're in the high 80s for ELA at the elementary schools. And we know that we can improve there as well, and we have every intention to do so. So math achievement doesn't look as impressive as the ELA achievement as across this state. It doesn't look as impressive. But our 3rd grade scores were in that low 70, and you're going to see that. They dip when you come to the middle schools, and that is really what I'll talk about, what we're going to do. I talked about it last year. We put some things in place, and we have more things to put in place this coming year. So overall, you'll see that those 50 ranges, we cannot stay there. We don't want to stay there. We absolutely aren't going to. But I wanted to show you separating them out between elementary and middle school math. So this is the middle school math.
That's elementary.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Might skip one.
Did I skip one? Hold on.
There it is.
There's the middle school math. Not where we want to be. When you pull them out, they're significantly lower than elementary school, which has been our issue. And I'll talk about why. And then here are our elementary math scores. So again, I guess the overall message here is that gifted students are still doing very well. Special education students aren't doing as well as general education students, but we are making improvements. One of the things that, you know, you're seeing 80%, 76%. We do have a standards-aligned elementary math program that has been put in place. So our next level up of work is providing professional development for teachers. Mrs. Pelez is taking the lead from that, and Dr. Bolton has been helpful in that area as well for flexible small group instruction in math at the elementary schools, which we haven't done. We've done small group instruction in reading. You'll see guided reading groups, but now we're going to apply that same philosophy to math. So, overall the math scores across elementary students that remained relatively stable. Middle schools, grade 6 increased by 4% from last year, 7th grade remained stable, and a slight decrease in grade 8 is noted. The decrease was likely due to the following factors. A new math program was introduced to teachers and students last year and had not been fully established, so it was year 1 of implementation. But we do have a standards aligned math curriculum now. Approximately 60% of middle school students take Algebra 1 in 7th or 8th grade and are not specifically taught those math standards associated with the PSSA math, because if I'm taking algebra or geometry, I'm not in PSSA standard math. So the math department is working to, and they've already did that, they've done this, they've already examined the eligible content on the PSSA, and then they're going to determine how they can take some of the skills and standards that are appropriate and applicable and infuse them into the algebra class and the geometry class so that the students are exposed to that information and provided some opportunity for instruction in those areas. Because the consensus for PSSA versus that Keystone is the math PSSA is challenging and it's rigorous. And they need to be taught that. So if you're not in those classes, you're not getting that. So that is what we worked this year to see what made sense in while I'm taking that geometry class, that teachers can teach some of the content from the math PSSA 8.
Dr. Shard, are you going to speak a little bit about the building data teams?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I think that's a significant piece to this when you drill down to building by building in terms of their ownership for their piece of this, because you're seeing some overall data in terms of what's happening in 3rd grade and 5th grade and 7th grade. And so to also talk a little bit about the work that Dr. Scheid has been doing with the IU support at the building level with their specific data, I think is not insignificant.
Absolutely not. And if I could just finish the science,
Sure.
I could go right into that particular topic. So our science scores, as I report every year, and it's always wonderful to report that, they are we're doing well in science. 4th grade, then becomes this dip in 8th grade. So 8th grade PSSA science is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade science tested in 8th grade. So it's not 8th grade science, it's all those years, right? So that department is looking at the content in those courses to see if we should align them differently, see if there are redundancies, eliminations, holes. So they're taking a look at that now in 8th grade, because if you can see the difference between 4th grade and 8th grade, and we wanted to know why. What is, other than the obvious, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, all tested in one exam, we wanted to take a look and make sure that the way we structured the middle school math made the most sense for students. So we're doing that now. And again, it's just unbelievable consistency that we see. But our take a look at this, if you would, take a look at the special education scores. Our students are always included in science. Special education students receive science instruction, everyone. They may be pulled out for reading and math, but they're not pulled out for science. And you can see the result of that. So they are the overall scores, kind of the state of the union overall. I talked a little bit about our 4th grade and our 8th grade and our secondary. Science department is really looking at the curriculum and paying close attention to 3-dimensional learning, really, with the next generation science standards. But to Dr. Bolton's point, what we have done, and we did this last year, is that we meet with every principal. Each principal comes to a meeting. Last year I did them, I ran them by myself, not by myself, the supervisors were there, but I ran those meetings with the building principals to take a look at the achievement data and the PBOS growth data. And this year we had Rachel Holler come down and run those meetings. We ran those together. She did a wonderful job of really helping principals drill down on the data to see where we need to be working in our schools and where our strengths are. So how does that relate to building level? All of our elementary buildings have established data teams. So at the elementary level, teachers, because this is established now over the last couple of years, have had a lot of practice in using the Linkit data. We have the Linkit warehouse that stores our data, and it's an analytics system. So it helps all of us see the standards and skills that students are doing very well in and where they need some help. So teachers and building teams have gotten very good at looking at their data. And the data is important, formative and summative data, benchmark data, all of that is important to help guide instruction, help teachers make those instructional decisions in their classroom. Middle schools also, as part of the comprehensive plan across the board, we have child study teams, and that's what we talked about with the development of the comprehensive plan. So within the structure of child study teams is data analysis. So we are establishing them. They are not at the point at elementary because they've had another year of it. Middle school now is in that rhythm where teams of teachers and administrators are working together to take a look at that data to inform instruction, to improve student achievement. At every department level at the high school, that is what occurs as well. So, can I bring up that CDT data one more time? The CDT data, the classroom diagnostic tools that we're using, they are being established now for next year. We are going to be using them in middle and high school in the 3 subject areas, so that all the teachers are comfortable using that kind of data. They understand that data and how it's related to that particular exam to help inform instruction and to help inform us with our curriculum, to make sure that we're looking at the curriculum across the vertical alignment of our curriculum as well as horizontal. So all schools look at data, analyze data for instructional purposes. And it matters because we can't make assumptions about instruction. We cannot do that blindly, and we need to be able to have the data that will most support us as we help to move our students. So you can see this, it's consistent, but we'd all believe that Penn Ridge School District can move even further than where we currently are performing. Does that make sense? Is there anything you want to add to that, Dr. Bolton?
No, it just was the experience I had new to the system in terms of watching the principals interact with that and then having an experience of, I've been to 3 of the data meetings, 2 in elementary school, 1 at a middle school, to see how the teams then do truly drill down to for this building. And so the principals, as they develop their goals, often will have a or 2 data goals specific to either CDTs or something they've noticed within their system, or PSSA or Keystone, that they're working through with their staff from that. So, because this data really is from a curriculum standpoint and a district standpoint, so I wanted you to speak a little bit to that. Work doesn't stop at the curriculum district level. Most of that is done at the building level as they're looking at theirs, and then we're supporting the district level initiatives through the curriculum.
Yes, we are, and the supervisors work very closely with the building level too. So what happens is we drill down and we can see the skills and standards. I personally can see them across the entire district, as Dr. Bolton was talking about, but you can also see them specific by schools. So we give that data to the building principals so that they can work with their particular staff. So it really does boil down to the building level. Now, I've been talking about Future Ready Index, the keys for progress measures. That is the website. It's futurereadypa.org. You can go to that website and this is what I'm going to suggest you do, because otherwise you're going to go crazy going back and forth. If you just put Penn Ridge in, just write Penn Ridge, it will list all the schools. Now, you'd still have to go back and forth, but it is much easier. So just put Penn Ridge in. When you click on that, click on whichever school you want to look at, and it'll give you all of this data. It's the same data I just showed you, but they report it a little bit differently. So this is the key. You see the circles and the arrows. So on the left-hand side where you see the colored circles, that's the progress towards the goals, the goal that Pennsylvania has established. So the statewide goal for the year 2030, the end result, is a decrease of the percentage of students not meeting proficiency and advanced by half. And that is the way it's worded, but it is convoluted. So they want to decrease the number of students who aren't proficient in and or advanced by half, and their end year is 2030. That is what this first line meets or exceeds the statewide goal. But then they're going to have yearly 13 years of interim targets. That's your second line there. Are you meeting or exceeding the interim, the yearly target year to year? And then the last one you see there, not meeting statewide or the interim target. And we don't want to be there. So you can see that the red is not a good thing. The green is just like you've seen before, maintaining, and then the blue, strong blue, just like the PBOS data I showed last year, is exceeding the goal. But you're not only going to see the circles and the colors, you're also going to see these arrows. So you might see the arrows are going to represent current and previous performance comparison. So they're going to tell you whether you increased in performance from the last year, you maintained it, or you're decreasing. So theoretically, you could be meeting the interim target, but you could be decreasing from the previous year. So they added another layer with these arrows in it. And circles aren't enough. You're going to get the arrows too. But I don't want you to be thoroughly confused on here. So that's kind of basically what this the key indicates. But I do want to let you know overall, because you've been listening to all this, you don't want to go through every school. All elementary schools and the high school met or exceeded the statewide goal. They all did.
So
The middle school,
they're all green.
they're going to be green and blue. They either met it or they exceeded
Okay.
it. You'll see that. There's some of our elementary schools are all blue. Middle schools met it for science and ELA, but they didn't need it for math, as you can see, because that's what the data just indicated. The on-track measures, all school, so you're going to have statewide data, you're going to have on-track measures, and on-track measures are measuring that LEP, the limited English proficiency, and attendance. In that area, all schools met all measures on track, all of them. Then you're going to see the college and career benchmarks, and that, all schools met that too. All of our schools met that. Nobody didn't meet those either. And that is about showing evidence that we're preparing our students for college and career. And that starts at the elementary school, where they'll have to write a letter, to a business saying, I'm interested in this. So all of our students, all of our schools met that too. So you'll be able to see that when you look into Future Ready Index. It's not necessarily intuitive, but you can play around in there. It's not going to tell you anything that you didn't see tonight, other than you'll see more of the PBOS data, the growth data per school, which I kind of showed you last year, or what that meant. This will be able to break down, but what you can see right away are colors. So when you open up Bedminster, for example, you're going to see blue, 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 blue. And when you see blue, they're exceeding the goals. And most of the schools, you're going to see some blue, some green, and then middle schools, you're going to see the red in math, just what you saw up here. So if you want to take a look at that, that's the website, and I hope that the key is somewhat helpful to you. And that ends the presentation.
Yeah, I'll go first. The changes that you've made to the math what point do you feel like we should start to see those changes reflected in the scores?
Typically, they'll say up to like about a 3-year period before you really start seeing the scores increase. We were pretty sure we wouldn't see anything the first year, an implementation dip, the first year of teachers learning the program. So we should expect to see that within a 3-year period when you introduce a new program.
So we wrote it out one grade level at a time in middle school, right?
No, we have them all, 6, 7, and 8.
But it was like the kids who were in 6th grade.
They got it first.
It started with 6th and then it would
It did.
continue with them as they moved up the
And
line.
algebra, yes.
So right now, what grade, the ones who started in 6th grade are
Two.
in,
This year, no, they're 3 and the rest are 2, because, no, wait a minute, no, I'm confusing myself. Yes, so everybody had it 6th and 7th. Now we're in 8. So then, this
So
would
this
be
is-
year 2 of the 6th and 7th.
so our 8th graders did have all 3 years of it.
No.
Our
We're just
7th
getting
graders
them
had
now.
2 years of
There
it.
you go.
And then our 6th
Because
graders
they
had
were
1 year of
6th
it.
graders last year.
And do you
Correct.
see a difference between the scores of our 6th and 7th
7th
versus
were
our
higher.
8th? Because I think this lumped it together, I think.
It does lump it together, the 7th grade, but you know what? To be honest and transparent, 7th grade scores are higher every year. They were higher, but they were higher before we did that. 7th grade scores are higher.
So you're not seeing a significant difference?
Not yet.
Yet, and you're feeling like that's because this is the beginning of rolling it out?
I think it's right, because the implementation takes a while. Teachers need to learn they have to learn that program, right? They needed to adjust the curriculum. Yeah, and I do think that that's fair, 1 year to get them going. The second year, you may start seeing some increase, but by the 3rd year, you should.
And so we're increasing the professional development in that area?
Tremendous amount of professional development. So professional development came along with, Matt Sadowski comes and he talks about the companies come out and they do professional development. And that does absolutely happen. But we have established over the last couple of years, time for teachers to work together with the supervisor. That time's invaluable because we have the teachers talking back and forth, what's working, what's not working, sharing ideas of instructional practices that may work for you and I haven't tried yet. That's another area of professional development that we are improving upon. And I think we're doing, and if you talk to the teachers, I think that they would agree that they find that time very valuable as well.
Are you concerned that based on this 2-year gap in the rollout of the reading program to the rest of the elementary schools, that you will see a discrepancy when those kids all get combined into 6th grade between the kids who had the reading and writing program for the extra 2 years compared to the kids who did not?
You can see it already. Even with the students who had it last year in 5th grade at West Rock Hill, the teachers who have those kids now already see a difference. So there will be a difference because we had that rolled out that way. But over time, that diminishes.
So what do we do about, how do we fix, what can we do about it?
So in terms of programming, but in terms of, that's okay. If you look
I'm the problem.
Okay. We know what the eligible content is on PSSAs. So at the elementary level, we know what kids are being tested on. We know that 25% of that score is going to be on text-dependent analysis. That's what it is. So we teach all students, doesn't matter which program you're in, they're all getting professional development and work in classrooms with those particular standards and skills. So it's not like we don't do that for everybody, right? But the reality is, if you're doing being a writer, making meaning, and words their way, you have a more robust and balanced program. That is the truth. Your skill development may be different from students who didn't have it yet. But there was and is a strong rationale for doing it the way we're doing it. Professional development matters most, at least in my mind, the way we roll that out. I am the first one to say I want it all. I have to I have to have you text her phone to say, hey, because I fear those types of things too, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Well, I'm curious when you see teachers like at Sellersville who are like, I want it all now, what the perspective would be for the other schools.
And to be perfectly honest, not everybody's ready for it all now. So while we did have teachers who wanted to go right into making meaning, I think we've had this discussion. I wasn't even comfortable to begin with saying, okay, now you're having another reading program after I'm just introducing the writing program. And it takes a while to understand that. But they were chomping at the bit, and they wanted that. So those schools in particular said, we are willing to do that extra work, because it's a lot of work. And they wanted it. And far be it from us to say you can't have it. You know, if you're willing to do that, that's why we have so many pilot teachers, the 23 or 21 teachers for Words Their Way. Yeah, give it to them, get them to be proficient at it, so that they can be the trainers and help us
So we
get
are
it.
letting the teachers who want to do it, and
There
they're
are
the ones
teachers
piloting
doing it.
Okay. You talked about how kids that are, particularly at the high school level in special ed, that the science is, they perform better in science than they do in the other areas. And part of that has to do with the fact that it's a co-teaching model in science at the high school.
It is.
And it's not in math and reading. And so when you look at that difference, that significant difference, do you feel like it would be beneficial to those kids if we move to a co-teaching model in those other areas, and maybe you would see that kind of significant proficiency and growth with those students? Because it really indicates to me that that inclusive model and that co-teaching model is beneficial to those kids.
It absolutely is, and we see that. And just by virtue of being taught the standards, but having two teachers in the room certainly is a benefit. But science isn't the only area where there's co-teaching at the high school.
Well, no, but when you talk about the math and ELA, is there,
We have co-teaching across the board at the high school. We don't have, we do.
well, you said that in science they're fully included, and so, but that's not happening as much in the reading, and that's not happening as much in reading, writing, and math.
What we saw, I think, okay, so what we had was a separate class in science, not a separate class, well, actually, there is a separate class in terms of reading. I always highlight the science, because what we were doing, at least when I first got here, is we were pulling those students out, giving them a separate class entirely. So I'm not in algebra, in terms of math. I'm not in bio. I'm in a transitional course. That was the glaring need in science, which we are using as the model to say, you need to be included in a general ed curriculum with certain supports.
But aren't they still taking the transitional math? That they, like they were with the transitional biology?